In this practical demo, we're going to be using a potentiometer dial to control the brightness of an LED. Doing this, you'll learn how to read analog signals and incorporate them into your project designs. This demo will also include some concepts that were introduced in the PWM demo, so I'd recommend watching that video first if you haven't already. Let's start by taking a look at our project's requirements. So we need to choose a pin that has PWM capability for the LED, and we need to choose an analog input pin for the potentiometer. So I'm going to choose pin 3 for the LED and pin A0 for the analog pin. Recall, in order to control the brightness of the LED, we need to provide a PWM signal and control the duty cycle. We'll also need to read the analog input pin. So let's start off by defining what pins we'll use. Pin 3 is our PWM pin, which we'll name PWM LED, and we'll set another variable called AN pin to A0. Next, we'll set PWM LED to output mode. We don't need to set a mode for our AN pin since analog signals on the Arduino Uno are only input. So now we can move on to the main loop. Just like in the PWM demo, let's set the PWM signal's duty cycle using analog write. We'll use the variable DC again as duty cycle in percentage, and remember that analog write requires duty cycle to be from 0 to 255, so that's why we multiply DC by 255. So next, we need to read the analog signal from AN pin. We can do this by using the function analog read and typing AN pin to the pin parameter. Let's also make another variable named AN to store the result of analog read. Analog read returns an integer from 0 to 1023 based on the voltage at the pin being read. So 0 is 0 volts and 1023 is 5 volts. The last step in our code is to convert AN, the integer we read from the analog pin, into duty cycle. So we essentially want to convert AN into a percentage. We know the max value AN can be is 1023, so we can type DC equals AN divided by 1023. So our logic is sound here. However, recall that DC is a type float, a decimal number, but AN is an integer. In order to get a value other than 0 for DC, we first have to turn AN into a float as well. We can do this by casting. To cast a variable to another type, we simply put the type we want to convert it to in front of the variable and then enclose it into brackets like so. So to put it all together, we tell the Arduino to read the voltage from the AN pin. The Arduino converts that voltage into a digital format and stores it in AN. We then convert AN to duty cycle and lastly tell the Arduino to write a PWM signal to PWM LED with the calculated duty cycle. So let's hit upload and take a look at Arduino and ARCIMUSE. Let's connect the potentiometer to A0 using the A0 connect switch. Once we do that, we see that the status LED at the first potentiometer dial comes on, and we also see that the display is now showing the voltage at the A0 pin. If I start turning the dial, we can see pin 3 is dimming and brightening as I turn the voltage lower and higher. I can also navigate to P3D to measure the duty cycle and see that it also goes higher and lower as I turn the dial. If you do not have an ARCIMUSE, your circuit will look something like this.